Hello everyone, Stormer1 here. Today we'll be having an update on the significant flash flood threat that's going to be continuing into tomorrow and even into parts of Sunday. And then we got more severe weather to track, or more severe weather potential to track tomorrow as well, and even tonight. So we're going to get started with the current hazards across the state of Kentucky. Obviously we got a lot of flooding issues out there, including significant flooding that's occurred earlier today. And you can see here really all the counties highlighted in this lighter shade of green are flood warnings that are out there. And you can see how it includes a very large chunk of the state, and even includes parts of Ohio, West Virginia. And you got these red boxes, these dark red boxes in Western Kentucky. Those are flash flood warnings out there. And we're going to see those flash flood warnings expand more to the east once again, as we are expected to get another wave of thunderstorms later tonight. We also have a tornado watch that's out in Western Kentucky here. It does include Paducah, Mayfield, Fulton County. Eddyville is also included in there as well. It does not include Madisonville or Hopkinsville, but that could change later tonight. And I think we're going to get a new watch that's going to be coming out farther to the east, and it may actually include parts of the I-65 corridor for what's going to be a line of storms coming in later tonight. So here's the storm prediction outlook for tonight. We got a moderate risk for severe weather that is in place from northeastern Texas through Arkansas into southeastern Missouri, with the enhanced risk that includes parts of western Kentucky. And here's a closer view of that. And you can see how the enhanced risk gets right up to the I-65 corridor. And you also got the slight risk that extends farther to the east. That may get cut back on the next update, which the next update is actually going to be in a few minutes. So we might actually check back at the end of the video, see what the SPC makes changes with. But yeah, we got a threat for some severe weather tonight. Here's the tornado risk. We got a 5 to 10% tornado risk that's out there. The 10% risk is more focused west of I-65, and you can see there's even a hatched area. The potential is there for strong tornadoes, though I think the strong tornado threat is pretty low for this event, especially compared to what happened back on Wednesday. So yeah, overall we got a threat for a few tornadoes out there. Damaged winds is going to be the primary hazard out there. Got a 30% chance for damaged winds west of I-65, and there could be some hail out there as well. Then the risk shifts eastward tomorrow for Saturday. Got a slight risk that's out for most of Kentucky. The only exception is southeastern Kentucky. And honestly, in my opinion, I disagree with this SPC outlook here for tomorrow, and I'll explain why a little bit later in the video. But a couple of tornadoes could be possible. We're not really talking about the threat for strong tornadoes tomorrow, but damaged winds will be the primary threat, and there could be some hail out there as well. And then by Sunday, the risk for at least the potential for strong storms becomes more focused in southeastern Kentucky during the morning hours on Sunday. And talking about the rainfall, this is rainfall for the last 3 days, and you can see here we got some big time numbers out there. Areas in yellow is really areas that have seen greater than 4 inches of rain pretty much, but really the more significant flooding has been across a large chunk of western Kentucky and moving up towards the Bluegrass region. This is the area that's seen around 5 inches rain or more out there, and especially when you get into western Kentucky where you got rainfall amounts that are nearing 9 inches. Yeah, almost 9 inches of rain in a couple of different places, and some of these areas are going to experience several more inches of rain tomorrow. So we're likely to get double-digit rainfall totals before this is all said and done out there. So, and that's going to lead to the threat for some significant flooding. So flooding is going to be the biggest concern going into tonight, all day tomorrow, and even going into Sunday. So let's check out the latest HRRR model right here. And we did have a few severe storms out there today that mainly were hail producers out there, even some strong winds, but no tornadoes have been reported today, which is good. But you can see that line of storms moving to western Kentucky later this evening here, and these storms here could be strong or severe. But you can kind of see here how as the line pushes eastward, they start to weaken as we get deeper into tonight. But even with a weaker state of storms, I can now route some strong winds out of it, maybe strong winds of 30 to 40 miles an hour out of it. But then you can start to notice here, as we get into Saturday morning, we kind of have a boundary that's going to be laid from these storms. And this is going to be key for the severe weather potential for tomorrow, is where this outflow boundary is going to be. Because along and south of that boundary tomorrow is where the greatest risk for severe weather is going to be for tomorrow. And as we kind of progress through this, for Saturday morning, how the boundary kind of continues to sink southward. At this point here, the boundary is right here. It even passes through, western Kentucky. It gets down to the I-40 corridor in middle and western Tennessee. Then it kind of hooks back up into Kentucky. But you can see how this outflow boundary continues to sag south until it pretty much stalls out by Saturday afternoon. At this point, the boundary's through here. So the boundary is south of Kentucky. And here's your next round of strong severe storms for tomorrow, setting up in Arkansas here. And these storms are going to move northeast, maybe a little bit of eastward movement with them. But you can see here where the problem is here. The boundary doesn't get that far north out there. The HRRR model suggests a couple of strong severe storms could be possible in south central Kentucky, but no severe weather risk, notably along the north of I-64. No severe weather risk up there. And you can see as you get into Saturday night how those storms here really weaken. But you can also tell here that there is still a lot more rain to come. And you can see here you get these steadier, moderate rains, through Saturday night and into Sunday morning. And even through Sunday here, you still got periods of light to moderate rain out there. So we still got a lot more rain to come. But kind of going back to the severe weather side of things, this is something that's called the supercell composite. This kind of tells conditions that could be favorable for supercells or could be favorable for some severe weather. And you can see here conditions were pretty favorable for supercells today, which is what we've seen. But you can see here as we get later tonight how these numbers here start to drop. Temperatures begin to cool out there, which means your instability numbers go down, but there's still a decent amount of shear. And you can see strong storms could be as possible as far east as maybe central Kentucky here. You got numbers 1 to a 2, and that's not really all that impressive. But you can, and it's also very easy to see where your boundary is. Your boundary is through here. The sharp cutoff line is where your boundary is set up, which is when we wake up Saturday morning, the boundary should be down towards south central Kentucky. At least indicated by this model run here. But you can see here the boundary sags all the way down to middle Tennessee, generally along the I-40 corridor. But you can see here the boundary really only makes it as far north as the Kentucky and Tennessee border. And you guys remember what I said earlier, that the greatest potential for severe weather would be along and south of that boundary. You can see here the boundary doesn't really come back that far north. Now the HRRR model sometimes does a decent job on where the boundary is going to sit, but I think models are going to struggle on the placement just a little bit of where the boundary is going to be. But if the HRRR model is correct, then most of Kentucky won't experience severe weather tomorrow. Which is why I was saying earlier that I disagree with the SPC forecast. If I was the SPC for tomorrow, I would put the slight risk across, south central Kentucky. Like these areas in here should be kind of in that slight risk. Actually, you know what? That'd be a little bit too far out there. We'll do these areas in here. These areas in here should be in the slight risk. The marginal risk, if the boundary is farther up north than expected, then I'll put the marginal risk, maybe along and south of the BG and Western Parkways and maybe down the Mountain Parkway. I would not put anybody north of 64 in a marginal or slight risk. I don't see any severe weather potential for these areas up in here. I don't think up in here we're not going to see, maybe not even strong storms up there. just because I believe that the boundary is going to stay pretty far to the south. So that's why I disagree with it. And usually your greatest amount of instability is going to be confined along and south of that boundary normally. But there could be some elevated instability that may sneak up over to south central Kentucky that might bring a hail threat and maybe some strong winds. But overall, I don't think most of Kentucky will experience severe weather tomorrow. I think the area to watch tomorrow will be across south central Kentucky for severe weather. And some strong winds, some hail, and maybe a brief spin of tornado could be possible up there. And it's all, but at the end of the day, it's really going to come down to is where that boundary is going to set up. Which, based off of this model, it really stays down Tennessee most of the time. But the next concern, or the main concern, is going to be flooding. And this is the rainfall amount potential from the HRRR. Even for 2 inches of rain, it's still a lot of rain, concerning of how saturated our soils are. But look at Western Kentucky. I mean, Western Kentucky could pick up another 4 to maybe 8 inches of rain. So it's very possible that when this is all said and done, you may have total rainfall amounts up to 15 inches when this is all said and done. This doesn't go for the entire day on Sunday either. Now, Sunday, the rains will be lighter, but we don't want any more rain still. But either way, major flooding is expected. Even catastrophic flooding is expected for Western Kentucky. I'm very concerned about this for the flood threat. And this is the Weather Prediction Center. And let's go back to tonight real quick. This is the flash flood risk for tonight, and it's a slight to moderate risk out there. Slight risk across most of Kentucky, but you got the moderate risk that covers most of Western Kentucky, even going up along the BG Parkway just a little bit, up towards Bardstown and E-Town out there. But the biggest flooding day is going to be tomorrow, and I've always said Saturday is probably going to be the day of the biggest concern for rainfall, as you've seen on the rainfall numbers and how much rain we've seen already out there. But you can see that a high risk includes a good chunk of Western Kentucky. It even includes Bowling Green. That high risk could get expanded a little bit more, maybe a little bit farther to the northeast. We'll just have to see by the latest guidance here. But you can see how the moderate risk does include most of central and northern Kentucky, with a lower risk for flooding across the south and east. And then the day 3 outlook for Sunday, you got a large risk across southeastern Kentucky and even south central Kentucky as well. So, yeah, flooding is going to be the biggest concern tomorrow. I do anticipate major to catastrophic flooding. Now, river flooding is going to be around for a while. I think a lot of these rivers, especially the Ohio River, is likely going to be a moderate to major flood stage for several days here. And it's going to take weeks for most of this water to kind of receive over time. Also, area flooding is another big concern as well. So, if you live in a flood-prone area, be prepared for another round of some flooding rains. I'm sure some people have already been evacuated out there from the flooding this morning. But with this type of rain coming in over very saturated soils, I feel like the flooding is going to be worse tomorrow and into tomorrow night. So, hopefully we don't get any more fatalities. As far as I know of, there's been only one fatality, and that was from Frankfort. Had a child that was walking to the bus stop, and unfortunately that child got swept away by floodwaters. So that's very sad up there. But hopefully we don't get any more fatalities from this event. But after Sunday, temperatures are cooler. We may have a couple of frost and freeze threats, I believe, for Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe even to Thursday mornings as well. And even the highs on Tuesday may not even make it out of the 40s for some areas. So, but it is something we need. But the bigger picture for next week is that it's a much drier pattern. We're not expecting much rain next week, which is exactly what we need. But anyways, guys, that's all I got for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys like this video, hit that like button. If you really like my channel, hit that subscribe button. Hit the bell notifications so you never miss an upload. If you guys get any questions, you put it in the comment section down below. I'll answer you guys' questions. I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye and have a good day.